Hello, welcome back. This is James Urel from UXShape. Today we're going to look at part 2 of our inventory mobile app tutorial. What we are developing. Once again, we've been able to go through the splash screen, which is the splash screen. And the next thing we'll be working on is the landing and onboarding screen. As we said in the previous tutorial, the onboarding screen is basically what we're going to display for our users, how they will have a quick overview of what the mobile app is all about. And this is where you'll be able to showcase your brand or your main product or app features or functionalities, and the user will be able to interact with this page. We're going to be making use of a lot of dynamic panels in this page because we're going to be having multiple interactions. And also I'm going to show you also some best practice that I should have shown you at the first page. In Hacksaw, making a prototype becomes very complicated when you start to use dynamic panels. And the advice I would give is every widget you place on your page, on your work area, you must ensure that you have that widget named. So you have a name for that widget. So for example, I should have named this something so that I have the shape name here. But we're going to go back to the splash screen that we did, and we're going to rename everything so that we can actually understand how this app works. Because sometimes we might want to make use of these things in the generated HTML code that that we have, with Hacksaw when we generate HTML files. So we have to make sure that we name all our widget properly. So I'm gonna start by giving the widget a name. So this one I'll call it splash screen holder. Yeah, and I just try and make it underscore. From a development standpoint of view, I don't like to write it together. So I just press enter, and we've named this widget so that when we are looking for this widget in our prototype, when we want to make an interaction, we can easily locate it using this name instead of trying to use this widget. And I'll show you what I mean as we go along. I'm going to name this as well, so I'm just going to select only this, and I'm going to name this as I'll say app logo. And I'll say here, I'll say app loading icon, and I'll list here and say version txt. If you are coming from a programming point of view, you will know you just name it as txt instead of writing the full text. So we've named this widget, and we're going to go back to our onboarding screen, and I'm just gonna click and remove this. So what we need to be doing here, we need to have a sort of interaction which is the onboarding screen. We want to create something that we quickly scribble down here, which is something like this. It's gonna have a 3-state dynamic panel interaction, and we'll be able to navigate left and right as we've written here. User can swap left and right to see the benefit of the app, and they can navigate either to login or sign up screen. So we'll try and prototype that, but we'll try and keep it simple as well. So the next thing we're going to do, developing our onboarding screen, we're going to drop a rectangle widget. And you can see when you are taking your shape, it always gives you an opportunity to see if they are aligning well with the main order that you have on the page. So I'm gonna just drop this, and I will give it a little bit of size like this, and I will increase the size a bit and give it a border radius. Sometimes you just go to style under widget property and style, and just change corner radius to 5. I always like to change it to 5. Then what I need to do next is to change the font color, change the border color to maybe light, and we're going to change this font to this. Yeah. So I'm just going to design something, and I'll you just watch what I do now. So the next thing we're going to do probably is I'm going to duplicate this page, and I'm going to make these. I'm going to do something like this, and to make it a perfect circle, I'm going to make it the same width and the same height, and we have a perfect circle. And I will align it together, and this is what we have here. So now what we're going to do, we're going to drop some icons here. So I'll just say icons will go here, or illustrations. So what we want to do, the illustrations will go here, and I think we might probably want to make it a square and then do the corner radius to 5. It's always better to change the corner radius in these widget properties and style, because from there we'll be able to get the exact, instead of using this mechanism that they have here. So I'll just make it like this, and I'll just we have the instruction installation. Then like we say, we're gonna make use of no color at all, so I'm gonna make this dark, and I'm going to probably remove the color, and I'll remove this color as well. So we have this, so there's no color at all. So we save that, and this shows our illustration. We're going to align it properly, line center, and perfect. So what we're going to do next is that, because we are trying to explain what the app is all about, we're going to drop a little bit of text here, and I'm just going to remove some. And right now we're just going to put a sample text. As we go along and as we tidy the app, I will be thinking of a little content that we're going to be having on our app. So for now, I'll leave it as this demo or low rem, this demo text, which is handy indeed. And we're just going to also probably have another heading, which is one heading, and I might have to make this Maven Pro as well and change the head color to, let's say, 22 or probably 20. So we have this, and I'm going to make sure we make the shape like this, and align middle, align center, and align middle. So we have this, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make this align center and group this. Once we have that, we have this, then I'll group this together, and we can have this, and we can, make sure we group them together, and we can always I think what we didn't do, we didn't select this one, so we need to ungroup everything back, and I need to select this, I need to make this okay, and I need to make this. And then what we need to make sure we have this selected, and we have this done, and we can align everything back together. So as we can see, we have this now. So what we're gonna turn this into a dynamic panel, but before we do that, we need to create like an indicator for the user to see. So I'm just gonna use another rectangle shape, and I'm going to change the size to, let's say, 30 to 30, or let's say 25 to 25 to 25. And I'm going to make this perfect circle by making the corner radius 100. So we have it perfect circle 100. I'm just going to reduce it a bit as well. Let's say 15. Let's be aware that because I'm viewing this in a zoom of 170, then that is why it's a bit smaller. But when I reduce it to 100%, it will be even smaller a bit. So probably we could make this 10 and make this 10, and we're just gonna zoom our work area back again and make it 175 as we have it. So we're gonna save this, and we're going to duplicate it by pressing Ctrl D, and we're gonna have 3 states, and I'll just align everything and then align middle so we have everything. And I'll separate this a bit and make sure we have a little bit of space in between the 3 icons. Select everything again, and I will remove the border so we don't have any border at all. And that is it. So what we're going to do next is we're going to now, because this is white background, and because we're making use of white background, I'm just going to make sure that everything is a little bit this, and the main item, once we are on the page, will be darker. So I'm going to choose this color, which is darker, and I'm just going to reduce probably this to color to maybe a little bit lighter. So what we're going to do, we're going to put it on this white area, and we can see how it is here. So now this is what we've done here, and what we're going to do next, we're going to now align everything together and align this, and we're going to align that, and we're going to center it. So we might want to give it a little bit of space, but I don't really think it's necessary. However, you can design your onboarding any style you want. Sometimes we could even go further by saying ungroup everything, and we could probably increase the size of this and make sure we have ways of explaining our application to the user in a way that they will understand. So we could make it something like this, and we could even make it blend into the area. So we could make this top section, yeah, blah. And I could remove this corner radius and make it 0, and we can just have this page goes like this, yeah. And that is it. So we have something like this, and we can ungroup and readjust everything back. So now we have this, and we can have this illustration, and we can have this text, and we can have this. So I can just reduce, bring this down a little bit, and we could probably just make this once we group this, we can now align everything to, we can distribute vertically, and we can present it. So you can see that our page is there. So you can add your icon here, you can add your illustration about what this heading is going to be talking about for our app. But the purpose for us right now is to ensure that we have this onboarding screen set up properly. So we've done that. What we now need to do is to have 3 screens. So what we've done basically is we're going to create this, and we're going to click this, we're going to click this, and we're going to group everything together. We're going to ungroup it, and I'm going to ungroup this as well. I'm just going to click this, and click this, and we group this together. So we're not going to click this area, we're not going to group them, because we're not going to make this area dynamic panel. The idea is that once we swap left and right, the dynamic the black area is gonna remain static, is gonna remain the same. That's not gonna change at all. So once we have that, we can now right click on what we've selected, and we can make dynamic panel. And like I said, we're going to name this dynamic panel, we're gonna say onboarding, and I'm going to just have a 3 states here, which is 3 states first, and we'll go into the first state. I'll just increase the zoom size as well again to 175 so I can see properly. And what we're going to do, we're going to name this shape as well. We're going to say onboarding slide 1 banner, and I'm just gonna copy this so I can use it for this for the second one. Also, before I do that, I'll copy this and put it in the second state and in the third state. And then what we need to do, we need to change this third state here. We need to make these darker, and we need to make these lighter, and we need to go back to the second state and we need to make these darker, and we need to make these lighter. So the idea is that when the user swap left and right, they are seeing the same, this effect is changing. So I'm just gonna make this slide 2, slide 2, slide 3, and I'm gonna make this slide 1. It's very difficult sometimes to rename every single widget, but we should, just try and rename which one it's necessary. If it's not necessary, we can sometimes leave it, because at this stage we are just trying to prototype this idea. We're not really sure 100% what the user is gonna like about this idea, and we don't know how many iterations we're going to have yet. So the best thing is, we should try as much as possible to name all the widget, but if you're finding it difficult to get a name for each of your widget, then I would suggest just keep it simple, especially when you are in a dynamic panel. The most important thing is to give your dynamic panel a name. You can forget about the state name, or you can forget to rename or to name the content inside of each state, because that will be too much, because you might seem to be repeating yourself and you might not keep up with the naming convention. It will just be too much for you to handle. So the best thing is, try and name your widget, and you will be able to sort that out. So the next thing we're going to do, we have that now, so we just go back to the main page, and what we're going to do is we're going to add something to our page here. Now the interaction that we're going to have here, we're going to make the interaction on the dynamic panel. But what we want to do is this: we want to ensure that we have this dynamic panel area cover the entire screen, so that when we are swiping left and right, we ensure that every page, every corner of the page, every section of it is being affected by the swap interaction that we're going to apply shortly. Now if you go here, what we need to now do next, because we've used a dynamic panel without having to include a rectangle widget, I would recommend you put a rectangle widget. We can have a rectangle widget and we can make it a size of the dynamic panel. Now the idea is this: we're going to have this area, but we're not going to display it in our main page. So what we're going to do, we're going to make this transparent so the user don't see it, and we're going to get rid of the border as well. And once we get rid of that, we send this to back. What we are trying to do here is that we are trying to ensure that we can align this properly so that they can go back to the normal state. So we send this to back, and we have this. So we can click this and we can now align this properly back again. So what I will just do again, because I didn't do that initially, I'll just copy this because it's easier, and I'll just put it back on. I'll just highlight delete this and replace it with the state 2. Highlight everything in state 2 and replace it with state 3, and I will just change here to state 3 as I've done earlier before. I'll make this gray, and we make this dark, and I'll go back to state 2 and I'll change this one to gray, and then I'll change this to black. So we have this state sorted out, and we can go back to our onboarding screen. Now another thing we need to look at is that because we've resized it now, this icon and illustration area is not quite staying in the position that we have this already. So what we just need to do, we don't need to panic. A little bit of trick will do it. So what we need to do is to make sure that we just move this a little bit and just increase the size of this a bit, and we can move this back by changing the x-axis. Okay, so we have a little bit of trick there that we've done. So what we need to do next is to go back to everything, and everything is fine the way it is. I'll go back to the main onboarding page. Now the next thing we need to do is to now add our interaction. In our screen, we'll say user can swipe left, right to see the benefits of the app and able to navigate to either login or sign up screen. So what we want to do is that we want to create the page that they're going to sign up, or they're going to land on once they finish the signing, and another interaction appears. So what we're going to do is that we're going to have something shows here, which is we're going to duplicate this page because we still want to keep the consistency of our design in terms of how they appear and everything. So I'm just going to remove this. Actually, I'll just remove the logo and this icon, and I'll just put here and say I'll just say login. I can also call this landing page. So this landing page is going to provide us a login screen, a sign up screen, and also the forgot password screen as well. I'm just going to put this at the center here, and we have this done. So now we have this, and what we need to do is to add the interaction. The interaction we need to add is swipe left, swipe right. And I usually make a lot of mistakes when it comes to this, because if you are facing the screen, you don't really know which is your right, which is your left. So we're gonna do it, and then I'll test it if it's going the right direction. So what we need to do, we need to say here on swipe left, we're going to show we're going to set panel state. And what we're going to do, we're going to set panel state, and we're going to look at onboarding, and we're going to set panel state, and we're going to say slide left, and we're going to click OK. Or what we're going to do, we can probably say next, because we want to have it continuously. So swipe left, so it's just going to go next and next and next like that. And we're going to wrap it as well from last to first, and we're just gonna make it, just leave it at 500 milliseconds now, which is all right. So we will close this, and we will go to swipe right, and we will go to set panel state, and we will go to previous, and we will just say left, and we will just go to right. So we need to test this first so that we can identify that the prototype is behaving the way we intend it to do. So what we have here is this. I'm using my mouse at the moment, so I'm just gonna try and swipe, and as you can see, it's swiping, and it's changing from slide 1, slide 3. We need to change this to slide 2, and then I will add refresh, which is control F5, and we will be able to see slide 1, this is slide 2, and slide 3. So once we have that, if we don't want it to continue from first to last, we can always just change this session in the interaction and widget. We can just remove this wrap so that when it gets to the last point, it's not going to be able to go back. But sometimes I don't like that interaction, so I prefer to to continue from left and right and everything, so that the user can continuously see even if they are too fast. So I'll just undo this change, and we have that. So what we've been able to do right now, we've been able to create an onboarding session. We've done left, right, and through. Now the last thing we need to do is this: once the user hits this third slider, what we need to do is we need to create an action or a button, a call to action, where the user can either go into the app, and then they can maybe they can click press a button to get started, and they can land on the landing page where they will be able to either sign up, log in, or change their password. So the trick we're going to use is this, because Axure is very flexible. You don't need to be so stressed about it. You just need to understand how your application logic is going to work. So this is what we'll do. On this slide 3, we're going to make it very simple, and what we're going to do is we're going to add a rectangle widget at the bottom here, just here. I'm going to add at the bottom here, and we're going to make it a little bit. So that means what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this up a bit, and I'm just going to have this here, and we can just take this up a bit. We can remove the border as well, and I'll change the font, and I can just call this get started. Now the get started is going to show the user how they need to start using the app, and they can just press this button and they can get started. And because it's white background, we can just change the button to white and give it a nice looking color. So we have this done, and what I just need to do again is to look at where this is. We have we have the X at 36 and 16, so we're just gonna look at this 36 and 16. The y-axis is 16 and the y-axis is 16, so that we don't make the user look like the design is going down and up. So what we're gonna do next is we're gonna refresh this and try what we've done. We go up, we go down, and we'll see the get started happen. Once the user sign up, everything disappear. The get started disappear. Once they hit the third dynamic panel state, then the get started button shows. And we're gonna add another interaction on the get started button, which is in state 3, so that when they on click event, they can move into this copy splash. And what we're gonna do, we're just gonna click it twice and change this to landing. And what we need to do is to ensure that we have it indented properly, and we can move this down to onboarding, and we can probably give it another indentation. While we are doing this, we are setting up our sitemap, because Axure also gave us an opportunity to generate sitemap. And once we have all this set up the way we want it in the order, then generating a sitemap is going to be very easy. One thing we need to do, we need to go back to this design area here, and I just need to move this away, and then I need to look at how we're going to make this a little bit not complicated, and we're just going to make it this. So we have this. I can just make it 361, yeah, and I can make it 360 here. So we have this, and I'll just change the x-axis to 0, and we have this sorted out. So let's preview this again by hard refresh, And we can see when we slide left, right, it shows. And when we go back, it shows. What we don't want is, we don't want to go back and then we'll be able to see that from 3. So I think we need to change the interaction here, which is the swipe right. We don't need to wrap here. We just need to remove this condition for the wrap. Let's preview it again. Refresh. 2, 3. And we can't go back anymore. We can only go forward. 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 But we can't go back. And I think probably I should also remove the wrap as well, so that we don't get the user confused. It depends on how your user, prefers the app navigation to look like. So we just refresh, and we can go straight. We can go straight. We can go straight. So the idea is that we've created an onboarding screen, so you can add any panel states you want. You can add multiple panel states, hundreds. But for your mobile app to give the message across of what your product is all about, your onboarding screen, I would recommend to make it a 3 state. You don't make it 5, you don't make it 4, you don't make it 7, and you don't necessarily make it 2 or 1. I think the minimum and the maximum state that you should have during the onboarding process should be 3 states. So right now, what we've done, going back to our little right up here, what we've done here, we've been able to do the splash screen, which is the splash screen here. We've been able to do the onboarding section, and from here, as we keep brainstorming it, we've decided to only create onboarding section, onboarding screen, and have a landing screen which is going to hold the login and section and the login and sign up flow. So what we have here is we have this information. Now the next tutorial, we're going to be looking at the landing screen, and the landing screen, the user will be able to sign up, log in, or retrieve password, and that is what they will be able to do. So what we need to do is we need to test our app from the beginning. We go back to our sitemap here, we just open it. You can minimize it and you can click here to maximize it. If you want to close it, then you will not be able to undo this action anymore. So the best thing for you to do is always to minimize and maximize. So we go back to the splash screen, our app load for few seconds, boom, and we have here the onboarding screen, and we can go left, right, and we can go right, left, and we can go right, and we can go, and we can't go further anymore. We can go. So the get started always appears at the top, and you don't need to do anything so complicated in Azure. You just need to understand the logic and the simple trick in order to present your prototype in a way that the user is going to get and understand it. So what we need to do, just to put a little finishing touch on this, is inside this illustration, I'll just drop a little image so that the user just feel like there's an image, or something, an illustration that will go here. We can just make sure that this is aligned properly, and we can we have it there, and I'll just copy it, and because we are in the same position, if I paste it here, it's going to be in the same spot. We're just going to remove this, double click, delete, click out, and then place it. Then let's preview it again, once again from the beginning. Our app loads, the logo, and we have place, so which is kind of looking all right. So we can make a lot of changes as we go along. As our requirement changes, we can just go along and change it. I would sometimes, even possible, rather remove this and just let the user or the stakeholder decide what kind of thing they want to have in this illustration. So a graphic designer can now come and design something that can go into this area to showcase the brand of the app. So what we have right now, we have this, and I'll just test it last time. The uploads, swipe left, slide 3, and once we hit get started, we are being directed into the landing page. Something just happened now that we need to check. Why is that? So we go to landing page and we go here. It's a landing, current window. Say okay, and what we need to have is we need to go here. And we have the reason why we have that, remember, we duplicated the splash screen. So although we've removed the icon, we've not removed the page load. So the page load is still showing. That's why. So we just need to remove this page load, and that's not going to happen again. We go back to splash screen, and we can go left, we can go right, and we can click get started, and it will remain in landing page. So in the next tutorial, what we're going to look at is we're going to look at how we're going to design our login, our sign up, our retrieve password. And after we've completed this process, we will now see the flow of the app, the user journey from the splash screen up to the login, sign up, and retrieve password. Once we have that sorted, that is the basic foundation of any mobile app. Every mobile app is going to have this foundation laid out. And once you get this foundation sorted out, the other pages will be built on top of what you've already laid out as the foundation of the app. So if you have any question in this tutorial, drop a comment in the comment below, and I'll be glad to answer your comment. If you want any special information about what we've done so far from the 3 videos, drop me a comment as well, and I will reply you as soon as I can. And also subscribe to the channel so that as I upload more videos, you'll get this information directly on your inbox, basically. Thank you for watching this tutorial, and I will see you in the next one. Thank you. Bye.